Today, whoops, making everything shake. I'm gonna talk about baby steps, on taking baby steps. And this came from, I was writing this morning, it's second day of the year, and I've seen people over the last few days posting on Facebook and Instagram, and then just talking with friends and family about everyone's New Year's resolutions and intentions for the new year and their plans for the new year. And I noticed that I was feeling a lot of pressure and was sort of almost feeling shame and embarrassment that I wasn't on it. I didn't have a plan, wasn't I don't know my intentions for the year. I don't know. I'm sort of still sorting it out. And I realized as I was writing that for me this year, and this is sort of across the board in my life, in the work that I do with clients, is that it needs to be small, simple baby steps. Don't need to do a whole overhaul of my life. I don't want to uproot things and sort of start from scratch. This year for me is really about taking baby steps. So I was reminded of a poem. I'm going to read the poem. It's by David White, and it's called Start Close In. Start close in. Don't take the second step or the third. Start with the first thing, close in, the step you don't want to take. Start with the ground you know, the pale ground beneath your feet, your own way of starting the conversation. Start with your own question. Give up on other people's questions. Don't let them smother something simple. To find another's voice, follow your own voice. Wait until that voice becomes a private ear listening to another. Start right now. Take a small step you can call your own. Don't follow someone else's heroics. Be humble and focused. Start close in. Don't mistake that other for your own. Start close in. Don't take the second step or the third. Start with the first thing, close in, the step you don't want to take. So I haven't yet figured out what the steps are, what the first step is. The first step, it's not true. First step for me is just looking at the whole picture of my life and of my work, and then deciding what the next steps are. And on just keeping it simple. What I've learned over and over again, both in working with clients one-on-one, but also really from coaching gymnastics. So I coached gymnastics for 14 years. And what I learned in that process, because I was working with kids, 2.5-year-olds all the way up to 18, 19-year-olds. And what I learned through that was that if I could boil down my adjustment or correction or whatever you want to call it for these kids that I was working with to a tiny little thing that would be something push through your foot at this particular moment, or straighten your leg here, or run faster, whatever it is, something super small and simple and concrete, it was hugely more effective than a whole complex thing that I could come up with. And it could have a huge impact, right? Straightening your leg or running faster here is going to have a whole impact on this string of acrobatics that comes after it. And so that's what I want to invite you to do, both in your New Year's resolutions or intentions, if you do that, but also in your sex life and in your relationships. So making small adjustments. Well, here's what I tend to notice. There's lots of teachers who, maybe not lots, but there's several teachers out there, and there's books that you can find that have these complex, elaborate, big ideas of things that you can do to make your sex life better, to make your relationship better. And it's great. It can be really fun and enjoyable, but they don't often get into the little nitty-gritty details of what's happening. And if you're not tuning into the small scale things as well as the big scale things, I don't know that the change that you're going to want is actually going to happen. And so what can be really fun and fascinating is to experiment with and play with tiny little adjustments, whether you are exploring on your own or with a partner, and just noticing what happens from these tiny adjustments. Rather than going big, you're sort of coming into the little things and the simple things. So a couple examples would be, this is sort of my joke one that I fall back on over and over again, which is like, just move a little to the left. And I mean that quite literally. When you're touching yourself, or when your partner is touching you, or you're touching your partner, try moving just a little to the left, or a little to the right, or up a little bit, or down a little bit, and see what happens, because it can be wildly different, just a millimeter from one spot to another, depending on where you are in your body. And it's also to take that into like looking at your whole life. Moving a little to the left can give you a really different perspective on something that's going on. So say you're struggling, like for me, I'm trying to figure out, like, what am I going to do with this year? And I feel sort of overwhelmed. And so I'm going to, after I finish this Facebook Live, I'm going to like lay out some paper and, move a little to the left and the right and the up and the down, and just play with different perspectives on what do I want to create? What do I want to set up in this new year? So change your location, move a little to the left. There's another video that I did. You can find it. I'll put it my website below, on 4 touch variations, because you can play with speed and pressure. So changing those things in your intimate relationships, in your sexual play, change the speed and the pressure. See what happens. Another easy one to do is to notice the tension or the relaxation in your body. Playing with that can have a big impact, as well as playing with your breath. There's a million of these little tiny adjustments that you can find on your own, that you can explore with a partner, but just like experimenting and trying something small to then notice what is the impact that ripples out through the rest of your life, through your pleasure, through your body. Okay, that's my spiel for the day. Take some baby steps, take some small steps. Try something different, rather than trying to just completely overhaul something, and so that it's no longer sustainable and you don't actually apply it for the rest of the year. Just make some small little adjustments and see what happens. Happy New Year!